You can auto-assign item numbers if you want to. This would be not grayed out on a new item if I were allowed to assign automatic numbers. If you create your own numbers, then this will be grayed out and you'll have to enter a number here. But right now I'm going to talk about all the different fields on this screen. And then you're going to see a new item entered and how quickly you can get through entering, because when I go through all these fields, it seems like an awful lot of information. And it seems like it would take forever to get one little item entered. So right here is our item number. This is my basic description, the description maybe that I want to print on receipts, and I can see this on my screen. And I might do lookups by this description as well. So item is view, search, and only, and not add. Yes, you have security that will be set up at the very beginning when whoever goes through setup part of it with you. There are things that you set as to how you want the system to be. Just like yesterday I talked about, the menu can be smaller or longer depending on who is logging in. So your menu might be different than someone else's because you might have more options or less options. The same holds true with security. You may be able to add information or delete information, but some people may not be able to do that because you want to have pretty good control on who's entering items, or you're going to end up with 10 of the same item in your system. So here, the item type right now is inventory. We have different item types. One is inventory, one is non-inventory, which would be something that you're, excuse me, not going to count. Something that you might sell in bulk. So you might have a big barrel of dry dog food, and they can buy it by the pound. And they scoop it up out of that barrel and put it into a paper bag and bring it to the register. Well, it's kind of hard to count how much is in that barrel. So you wouldn't be counting it. You would just be looking at it and seeing when you need to order more. But on the system, you can also see how much has been sold, though. You would be able to run a report to see how many pounds of that bulk dog food was sold. You may not need that, but that's just an example of what's available. We also have service type of items. In the pet industry, I've noticed a lot of pet stores have grooming. So that would be a service. We also have discount type of items. So you might create an item that is a coupon. Maybe it's a $2 off coupon that you might have put in the local newspaper, or you might have sent out in the mail. So you could have a discount type of item as well. This tracking method is normal. It could be a gridded item, which would be something with different dimensions to it, such as a t-shirt. A t-shirt might come in small, medium, large, extra large. It also might come in blue, green, white, red. So you can tell the system how many of each of those sizes and colors that you have, so that you can also have a barcode associated with each size and color. So when you scan that barcode, the system knows which size and color you sold. You can unique vendor item numbers. That would probably be your barcode, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Okay, we're going to come over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, there are sometimes you purchase the serialized option, so you might have a tracking method of serialized items, such as maybe a refrigerator would have a serial number on it for warranty. We have some people that sell boats. So those have a serial number on them for the warranty time. Okay, right here, price 1 is your standard selling price. Notice this information is in blue, so it is a required field. So price 1, you would normally sell this item to anyone who just walks in off the street. That's your standard selling price, not when it's on sale, not when you have a special customer that belongs to a special group, maybe a wholesale customer, something like that. Regular price is like a manufacturer's suggested retail price. You could also put a price in there that you might want to use as a comparison price, that your price is better than this MSRP or better than the whatever you put in there. I have a couple of clients that actually have that regular price and price 1 on their barcode labels, making it look like the customer is getting a really good bargain. I'm not sure if they really are. I don't know where they're determining that regular price from. The last cost field. I want to explain, when you put a new item in, before you save the screen, make sure you put in something for the last cost. Otherwise, your reports with your profit information are not going to be even close. They're going to think that you made 100% profit, because the system is going to look at that cost and average it out, and it's going to give you an average cost on the item on your reports. However, if this is 0, it has nothing to look at. And once you save the item, there's a couple of ways you can change this cost, but you can't just come into this screen and make the change. You can change the cost by doing an inventory adjustment, or you can receive the item at a different cost. So I highly recommend, even if you don't know what the cost is, make it maybe about 50% of this price 1. Some place to start. This item could be discountable. If this is not checked, then it can never be discountable. It's not going to be able to have a discount on it. That would be, we have some people that sell like fishing license and hunting license, and they can't discount those, whether this item is a taxable item or not. You might sell items that are non-taxable. Here in Ohio, it would be candy bars. Those are non-taxable. So if I were entering a candy bar into my item, then I would mark it not taxable. I would uncheck this box. Tax categories. Different states charge tax differently. Some states have 2 or 3 different taxes on their items. It might be a state tax, a city tax, and maybe a county tax. Some states also tax differently depending on the type of item. And I'll give you an example. New York taxes apparel differently. If the apparel item is $150 or more, it's a different tax percentage than if the item is under $150. In order to accommodate that, what you would do is create a tax category of apparel, and then you can put your limitations on that tax category. Then you associate that tax category with the item itself. Now, if you just charge one tax, you don't really have to worry about that tax category. Actually, even if you charge a city tax, a state tax, and a county tax, you don't have to worry about the tax category if it's not different depending on the item. This category is a code that categorizes this item. So you could have different categories set up, and you can run reports by that category if you want to. You can also put items on sale and give special pricing per category if you want to. So the category is a real handy way of breaking down your items for reporting purposes. We also have a subcategory. So that would be under golf, what are the different subcategories that could be included? So then you could run a report maybe of category golf with subcategory accessories, and you would get it narrowed down even further on your report as to your sales or how many items you have in that subcategory. So this is just a way of limiting what your items can go to on a report, or limiting the report, categorizing your item. This account code, notice, is in blue. And what this is going to do, it's going to tell the system where the transaction information needs to go. And I'm going to jump over here to this little magnifying glass so I can show you exactly what it's going to do. I'm going to use this default account code, and I don't have to go to the specific table. I can look at it from here. So I'm going to go to Edit so you can see that. And during setup information, this will be discussed in detail, but I want you to see where this information comes from. So I can edit this account code, and when I sell this item, receive this item, even when I do an inventory adjustment, this is where the system knows what account numbers to put that towards. So my balance sheet inventory goes to my inventory merchandise account number. My receivings accrual account is going to go to this account number. This is when I receive my merchandise, what's going to get affected by that. My transfer clearing, so if I'm transferring from one store to another, it's going to go to this account. Return to vendor, this account. If you drop ship merchandise, that's where you have a customer who wants to order something, and maybe it's something heavy. You don't want the vendor to send it to you. You want the vendor to send it directly to the customer. There's an option for drop ship in here. So this would be the account number that information would go to. Then under the sales and cost of goods sold, your sales account number, your cost of goods sold account number, your returns, your cost of goods returned. We have other account numbers here, adjustments, physical count, miscellaneous item expense, would be like freight, that sort of thing. So this is where the system is looking to see where to put the information when you sell this item, when you receive this item, if you do a transfer of this item. It's very important that these account numbers are set up correctly so that when your accountant looks at his report, everything will look correct. It'll be going to the right account. Here I could put a barcode on this item, and I'm going to show you in a minute how you can have multiple barcodes per item, because you might purchase this item from more than one vendor, and you don't want to have to try to figure out what item it is. You can put in there all of the different vendors' barcodes for the same item, and when the cashier scans that barcode, the system knows which item it belongs to. This is my primary vendor. This is the one I usually purchase this item from. And here I have that vendor's item number right here, because the vendor's item number could possibly be different than my item number. My quantity on hand and quantity available could be different. because I might have 5 of these, or the system thinks I have 5 of them on the shelf. But if there are 3 of them on a ticket that hasn't been posted yet, because I just made a sale of 3 of these, this quantity available would be much less. The vendors for per item, there's only one primary vendor, but you can have as many vendors as you want associated with that item. And we're going to go through a vendor item record here in just a minute, and you're going to see that. So your quantity available, if you have a customer who is ordering, maybe they're calling on the phone and giving you an order for this item, orders would affect your quantity available. The status area is whether this item is an active item, discontinued, or inactive. So you can set these items differently depending on if you're not going to sell it anymore. Maybe you're out of this item and you're not going to order it again. You might inactivate that item. And the status date as to when that changed. So that you can look at that. Maybe somebody is returning an item that you've discontinued or you've inactivated. So you may not want to do a return on that item. This is a great place for you to put the date so that you can look at that date and see that, oh, we just inactivated it yesterday, so we'll go ahead and take your return. I knew you were going to ask that, and do you know I always forget. I think that discontinued, and I'll show you here in one second, I'm pretty sure discontinued means that you can still sell it if you want to. I believe inactive means you can't sell it or order it. So I'll show you how to find that out. We're going to go here to the help screen. And I'm going to put in here inactive item. Inactive item. Let's see what it has to say. Inventory items to duplicate. Unlike discontinued items, items that are inactive cannot be ordered or returned or added to purchase requests, receiving, or quick receiving. So if it's inactive, you can't order it again. Discontinued will allow you to do different things with it, put it on a customer's order, put it on a purchase order. So there's the difference. And I don't know why I have this mental block about that. I should have. So that would be where you would basically turn an item off or on as to whether you can order it or return it or sell it, things like that. Label code would only be used if you have items that have specific types of labels, such as if you sold jewelry and you have the little butterfly labels for jewelry, you would want to mark that those items get that butterfly label so that you're not printing out full-size labels for those little tiny items that have butterfly labels. We have clients that they sell trees, and they have these items that are really big tree tags. They're very long. They go on the limb of the tree. So they might have their trees associated with those tree tags. I'm going to talk about mix and match code in a little while. There's another spot under inventory that we talk about that. Now I'm going to go to this description tab. There's a lot of information on every single item. Not all of this information has to be filled in. So if I go to description, I have this short description which by default will copy part of this description. I have a long description, which gives me up to 50 characters. And I have 3 additional descriptions. If you want to use one of these additional descriptions for something specific, you can change the word here. Instead of this one saying additional description 1, we have it saying color. So if there's something specific that you want to put in one of these descriptions, we can change the wording for it. They can be, if you want them. There's something called a keyword, and that's what you're going to search by. So if you want, because if you had all of this as keywords, then it would get very crazy and take a long time to look up one particular item. But if one of these descriptions had something specific in it that you would be looking up for, we would make that particular line or that particular field a keyword field so that when you do a lookup, it would search for that. They are. If I say color here on this additional description, then that's going to show up as color on all of my items. Okay. They also have these attributes. Now, if you want to use the attributes, when you go through setup, you want to maybe bring that up, because item attributes do not come up by default. You have to tell the system that you're going to use them, because we don't like to put a lot of extra information out here if you're never going to use it. And I don't have very many people that use the item attributes because we have so many descriptions, we have categories, we have subcategories. So typically, they don't need the attributes. But you may have 1 or 2 items that you might need the attributes on. And you can also change this wording for the attribute as well. Talk about units. Notice this says my stocking unit and my preferred unit are each. This might be an item that I can sell by the dozen or by a case of 12 or a case of 24. But I may also, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied, I may also purchase this item by the case of 24 or the dozen. So I could have an alternate unit here specifically for purchasing rather than for selling. But somebody might come in and want to buy a case when you just got them off the truck, you haven't opened the case up yet and put them on the shelf, but somebody wants to buy that case. So you could. And in your case, probably canned dog food. You might sell it by the can or by the case. You might also have cases of 12 or cases of 24. So what's nice about this, you can tell it you have an alternate unit. I'm just going to go ahead and choose 10-pack here. And what you've told the system is that one 10-pack equals 10 eaches. So it can calculate and deduct from your inventory correctly. It also, if I don't have an alternate price in here, if I would sell one of these 10 packs, it's going to multiply 10 times the price. Now, if I'm going to give them a discount or give them a special price, basically, for this 10-pack, I can change what it's going to cost. So instead of it being, maybe it's going to be $10,000. Instead of 11, if they buy it by the 10-pack. Now, Yes. Your UPC code or your barcode associated with the case might be different because you might have some cases out on the floor and some eaches on a shelf, and someone brings a case up to the register. You don't want them to have to open that case to scan each item that's in it. They could scan the barcode label that's on the outside of that case, and the system would associate it with this 10-pack. And you're going to see that in just a minute. Since I've made a change, I want to go ahead and save this to be sure that I don't forget. So I'm going to go ahead and save that just so I have all that information in there. And then if I go to grid, since this is a normal item, my grid area is going to be blank. So if I click on that, it's blank because this is not a gridded item. But I'm going to go to barcode. Now, normally, it's going to look at the barcode that's right here. I can auto-assign that barcode. So there's a barcode that's associated with each. Now I'm going to go over to my barcodes tab and see that barcode filled in here. But I have another barcode, and I'm going to auto-assign this one as well. But it's not associated with my each unit. It's associated with my 10-pack unit. When I click on this down arrow, it knows these are the only units that I have set up for this item. And then it wants to know the barcode type. We can have alternate barcodes, but this is going to be an item barcode, the basic barcode. And then I can hit enter, and it'll go up in my list of barcodes. So if I would scan a barcode that has this number on it or this barcode associated with it, it knows it's a 10-pack. If I scan a barcode that's this number, it knows it's an each. So you don't have to open those cases. Okay, now we're going to go to profiles. This is another thing that you may or may not want on your screen. So when you're doing your setup area, then you want to tell the system if you're going to use profiles or not. Additional vendor codes, yes, you can. Let's go back to that for just a minute. This might be my barcode, but maybe I buy this from someone else and they already have a barcode on it. My barcode might get faded out. Maybe I forgot to put it on this item. Or maybe I just don't put a barcode on this item. So I can assign another barcode. Let's do this as new 1, 2, 3. This is the barcode from the vendor. And the associated unit maybe is going to be the 10-pack because they don't barcode the individual. Or I could put a barcode for each one of these. But it's not the item barcode, it's an alternate barcode. So I'm going to call it alternate number 1. The item one is my barcode. This alternate one is another vendor. If I purchase from a second vendor, then I can put a barcode in here, and I'm going to auto-assign this one. I can associate it with each or 10-pack. I'm going to associate it with a 10-pack. And the barcode type on this one might be alternate 2. You just have to differentiate between the barcode type. It doesn't let you have the same barcode for the same type on the same item. So this is alternate 1, this is alternate 2, so you're purchasing it from 2 different vendors. You could create a barcode type for each vendor. You could call it the vendor's name if you want to. You might want to just do, because some items you might not purchase from all your vendors. So you might not you might just want to make it alternate 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't care who the vendor is that comes from, just that you have all of these barcodes associated with this one item. Okay, we're going to go over to profiles briefly. And again, I said that you don't have to use profiles if you don't want to. There are a lot of them here. You may or may not need them for your items. We just put some in, like this one said first received. Well, there's another area that's going to show you when you first received this item. So that one's kind of irrelevant. But these are date profiles. This is going to be a numeric profile. This code profile means that there is a list that you can choose from to put in this area. You might want to make a code profile for, I don't know, the brand of dog food that it is, something like that. So profiles you may or may not use. And a lot of times you don't even know at the beginning if you're going to need them. Later on, as you call and say, you know, I'd really like to do a sale by this, this, and this, we might say, you know, that's a perfect spot to use a profile. And we'll look for those items and show you how to put that profile on it. If it's a serialized tracking method, under this serialized, we would have different prompts for those serial numbers. E-commerce is the online store. If you have an online store, this information would be filled in. The other tab, this is, I guess they just couldn't figure out how to categorize that tab, so they just said it's the other tab. And what it has in here is pretty important to a lot of things. You might want to have more than 2 price decimals for certain items. So you could change this price decimal to 3 or 4. Quantity decimals is great because if you sell something by the pound, they might buy a half a pound. So you would need 2 quantity decimals so that you could put in 0.50. Maybe it's 3/4 of a pound. You could put in 0.75. Yes, they can. You notice that these are grayed out, and this is the perfect place for me to show you this. There are fields in here that can be locked out so no one can change it except certain people that have the option. And that would be this little lock up here. So I'm allowed to do protected changes. These things, these fields are protected. And if I want to change that, I have to click on this and unlock this lock. And there's a security setting so that some people can't unlock those fields. That's the whole purpose behind having the fields. So here, when I clicked on that unlock, it's not grayed out anymore. I can change this if I want to. This particular item I sell by the whole, so I'm going to leave it at 0 quantity. That means it's going to be a whole number. We have warranty periods. So if you have some items that have warranties on them, you might fill in these warranty periods. Maybe warranty period 1 is your warranty period. You'll take this under warranty maybe for 30 days after the sale. But the manufacturer may have a different warranty. Their warranty period might be 120 days or 365 days, something like that. So you might want to make one of these your warranty period and the other one the manufacturer's warranty period. This prompt for description, every once in a while I have people put in a miscellaneous type of item. And they might have it prompt. Every time you sell that item, it'll ask for a description for that item so that they could type in the description and move on. Some people do that if they have new items coming in and somebody wants to buy it, but they haven't put it in the system yet. You want them to be able to buy it. Prompt for price might be in the same idea. You have a miscellaneous type of item in there, so that could be different pricing on those items. So if you check the prompt for price, when that item is sold, it would ask them for a price. The prompt for cost does not work if it's a normal inventory item. It has to be a non-inventory item to ask for a cost. Prompt for unit would be for items that you don't have different barcodes for the different units. You might have a pack of 3, a pack of 12, or an each, and maybe you don't have all those barcoded, so you could prompt the clerk for what unit the customer is purchasing. Prompt for custom fields would be if we've written something custom for you, and then we would tell you how to use that. The substitute, I'm sorry, I've missed a couple. A food stamp item, if you sell items that can be paid for with food stamps, you check that box if this item is one of those items. That way the system will know what is eligible to be paid for with food stamps and what isn't. Admission ticket. We have some clients that offer classes. So they have some items that are considered an admission ticket. And they have it print out a little receipt that says this is their admission ticket to whatever event it is. Weighed. If you weigh a particular item, something maybe that's sold by the pound, you'd want to mark it as weighed if you're using a scale. We also have some prompt codes over here that will prompt for something when they sell that item. If you have serialized items, you'd want it to prompt for the serial number. If you have something that requires some sort of a permit, then you could have it prompt for that permit. Maybe you have items that you sell that you have to be over 21 to purchase. So you would have it prompt for their date of birth, and it would calculate whether or not they're 21 or not. And weight or cubic inch, if you have items that you want to put in there on that. Substitute items. Substitute items could be many different things. You might have items that you sell in a kit, but somebody wants to substitute one of the items with something different. So you could put a list of other items that could be substituted in that kit or that basket or whatever it is that you put together. This also is wonderful if someone comes in looking for something, but you're out of it, and you can look at these lists of substitute items and give them a suggestion of what to substitute for it. You know, they came in for a particular item, but you're out of it. Might we recommend this other item? So this gives the clerk a good idea of what to recommend. I'm going to go back to the main tab because there's still more that I have to show you on this. I know this is a lot of information. Down here, once you've saved the item when you're entering it, Down here under inventory is some information about this item. So I'm going to go to inventory, and I have to say what location I'm in. And if I hit enter, then after you've had the item for a while, it keeps track of all this information. And for this location, how many do I have? How many do I want to keep on hand, minimum and maximum? How many do I want to have on my shelf? Over here, quantity on hand. And remember I said that you could have 5, but quantity available might be 2 or 3. It would show you under the quantity committed that those are committed, and you could come down here to view commitments, and it'll tell you if it's committed on a ticket, if it's committed on an order. It'll tell you where it's committed, and it'll tell you the document number that it's committed to. So it's easy to find. But over here, it'll show you quantity available, quantity on purchase orders. So we're waiting to receive 4 of them for this location Maine. Quantity on customer orders, quantity on back orders, quantity on special orders. The computer thinks a special order is something that you don't always carry, but you can order it for the customer. You can get it. It is in the catalogs that you order from. Quantity on layaways, transfers. You could have something ready to be transferred out to another store. When they receive it, they need to do a transfer in. Quantity on drop ship customer orders. So if you choose to use drop ship orders, this can tell you how many are on drop ship orders. And quantity on drop ship purchase order. So I have one here, but I don't have any customer orders, so something's not right about my system. I shouldn't have a dropship purchase order if I don't have any customer orders waiting for that. Okay, you could have the bin number, I believe would have to be, the purchase order would have to be tweaked a little bit in order to get that bin number on it. But what the bin is, where it's located in this location. So you might have it on shelf 25, or you might have it in the warehouse. So one of those bins might be something different. That is more about the location within this location. It does not. You have 4 bins available. When you need more than 4 for a particular reason, that's where we would go back to use probably a profile or an attribute, because we can have more of those. So I'm on this location for this item. So I'm going to go to model stock, and it's going to be gray. And that's because model stock is specific to gridded items. I can go to dates, and that tells me the first date that I received this item, the last time I received this item, the first time I sold it, the last time I sold it, the last time I did a physical count on this item, the last purchase order date. If I have an expected date to receive some, it would have that in there. And the next purchase order that I expect to receive is this purchase order number. Dynamic mins and maxes takes a lot of work. There are different reports within the system that you can get that can give you recommendations of how you should order this item based on annual holding cost, if it's a percentage of the unit cost, or if it's a set amount. So this is how much it costs you to keep that item on your shelf for 1 year. Ordering cost. Each time you order this item, what does it cost you? You have to print out a piece of paper or send an email. There's someone ordering it. So you have costs involved in creating that order. And then you can have the system calculate your quarters. That's usually how it's calculated per quarter, so that you know how to replenish your information or your stock. I'm going to get out of this inventory screen, and we're back to the item, and I'm going to go to prices. Now, I have 6 prices available. If you purchase the extended pricing, or the, I forget what it's technically called, but I call it extended pricing, then you have 6 prices available. I'm just going to say this is location name, because you could have location-specific pricing. And then you could put in price 1, what it is at this location, price 2 at this location, and then you could relate that price 1 to your standard customers, or you could have customers that are wholesale customers, and they might get price 2 or price 3. Maybe your employees get price 3. So you could set up different pricing and associate it with some specific customers if you wanted to. So here I'm saying for location Maine, this is my pricing, and I could have another location with different pricing for the same items if you want to. Go ahead and get out of here, and I'm not going to save any changes. Vendor items. This is what we were talking about just a little while ago. So it wants to know who I purchased this item from. And I'm going to put in this vendor, and it lets me know this is my primary vendor. I have it down here as the primary vendor. And it wants to know this vendor, what their item number is. So if I chose a different vendor that I purchased this item from, I could put in a different vendor item number. That way, when I create an order, I might want my purchase order to have the vendor's item number listed as well as my item number. Here's the vendor's description, because their description might be different than ours. The vendor's list price might be different than our price 1. And we can put any comments that we'd want to down here regarding how we purchased from this particular vendor. Now, if I go over here to purchasing, though, this says how I purchased from this vendor. Since I associated that 10 pack, I can purchase by the 10 pack. And again, it tells me how it's calculated, so that when I receive it, it knows how many eaches I have. I could have a minimum order quantity that I have to buy when I buy from this vendor. So maybe I have to buy 2 10-packs when I order from this vendor. Then this is the unit cost for the 10-pack. Of course, it didn't change, so it would be probably different for that. Order multiple, because you're going to be filling this in. Order multiple, maybe I have to order at least 2, and I have to order in multiples of 2. So I can't order 3 10-packs from this vendor. I might have to order 2 or 4 or 6 10-packs from this vendor. If I know the lead time that it takes from the time I create a purchase order to the time I receive the merchandise, I can put in how many days it takes right here. Or once I've started receiving from this vendor, I can have the system auto-calculate that. If I go over to this last order tab, it'll tell me information about the last order I have for this vendor for this item. And the last time I received this item from this vendor, it gives me this information here. The last time I received it, the date, the receiver number, who the buyer was, who the receiver was, and so forth. And I can save that, and I can click on this little plus sign if I'm ready to add another vendor that I purchased this item from. So if I did that, then I could choose another vendor that I purchased this item from. And down here, I can come through and type in any information regarding the way that I purchased this item from this vendor. So I could have a different item number in here because it's the vendor's item number. And then I could go over to the purchasing. How do I purchase? Maybe this one I buy it by the each. Maybe the minimum order quantity is 2, but there's no order multiples, maybe 1. And I can save that, and I've created what's called a vendor item record. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. Now we're going to talk about some of these buttons across the top, these little icons. This one will take me back one screen, so it'll cancel what I've done here. And it will ask me, am I sure I don't want to make those changes, or do I really want to get out of here? So I'm going to click on it. Are you sure you want to cancel your edit? I'm going to say no. I want to save that. So that just reminds me that I haven't saved yet. This little blue diskette is your save icon. So I can click on that, and it saves anything that I've changed. This little green plus sign means I need to add something new. And you're going to see these same little icons at the top of a lot of screens throughout training. This X will let me delete this item. One thing about this little X being here, if I have any quantities, it won't let me delete it. If this item is on a ticket right now that hasn't been posted, it won't let me delete it. We can also limit who has this option. If I'm creating a new item, I'm going to go ahead and say I am. I'm going to auto-assign the number. These two little pieces of paper are my copy from. So I can copy from another item. If I'm putting in an item that's very similar to something else, I could copy from that other item. I'm going to just choose this one. And I can change my description right here. And I can say whether it's inventory or non-inventory, service or discount. I'm going to make it a non-inventory item. My tracking method, is it normal or is it gridded? If it's a gridded item, it's going to be an inventory item. Okay, and so I'm just going to say normal on this one. It copied my price from that other item. I can make a change here if I want to. And my last cost is showing up of the last cost of that other item. So I can go in and make that change. It's just copied these things. It hasn't saved my item yet. My stocking unit, discountable, taxable, and so forth. My category, subcategory, account code, vendor, primary vendor, item number. Now, since this is a basic item, I don't have to go to any of my other tabs if I don't want to. If I'm not adding barcodes, I'm not doing any more with this item, I can save this item right now. That's what I'm going to do. This just refreshes my screen. This is my lock button, so if I lock it, there are things that gray out that I can't get to. If I unlock it, it lets me get to them. This is my table view, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. Now, let's say I want to look at the first item in my list of items. I can do this, which says first item, and it takes me to the very first item. I can go forward one item at a time by clicking the right blue arrow. It'll take me through my list of items one at a time. Maybe I want to go to the very last item in my list of items. I could click on the right blue arrow with the line after it. Now maybe that's not the one I wanted. I want the one before that. I can go back. This little piece, or actually it's like a book with a little red mark on it, that's your bookmark. So if I click on that with this item, it bookmarks this item, and the next time I do a lookup on items, it will take me right to this item first. Going forward and backward, I can change the order. Everyone or just that user? It's just bookmarks for the user, this particular user. Going A to Z would be going from the first to the last. It would switch the order. The first one, if I switched it, the first one in my list would actually have been the last one in my list before. Now, this little funnel is a way of filtering what you want to look at, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. When I talk about this other table view, I'm going to show you a lot of filtering. Here's another lookup. It's the same as this one. It's just going to show you a list of items. Get out of the lookup and go back to where I was. This is a note. If I have notes on this item, it'll have these blue lines. If there are no notes on this item, this would just be a plain white piece of paper. So I'm going to click on it so that you can see the notes. And I don't know, someone else put the note in, so I don't know what the note ID is. I can click on this blue arrow and scroll through the notes if I want to. That's the only note it has, and it made it a date and time. If I wanted to add a new note, I would just click on this plus sign, and I have to give it a note ID. Now, I'm going to use the word auto, and what that note ID tells the system is if I have a note on an item that's called auto, I want it to automatically pop up when I choose this item. So when I sell this particular item, whatever's listed here will come up. I'm going to put in here and then I'm going to save it right here. I'm going to get out of it. So when we go to sell this particular item, we will see this note. And this is just a freeform text area, so you can add as many lines to this as you want to. You can change the font. You can change a lot of different things about it, sort of like you do in Microsoft Word. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the note. This would print what's on my screen here, the information about this item. This, I could print a label for this item right now if I want to. I'm in the item. I just created this item. It's one that I just ordered or I'm just receiving. So I want to print maybe a shelf label for this item. So I could go right here and print that right away. Now, we talked about the help information yesterday, and you're going to see this throughout the system. We have 2 question marks here. And this first one that's in the little bulb, it's called What's This? So if I click on that, it puts a little question mark by my cursor, and I can go to a specific area and click, and it will give me an excerpt from that help area, or the manual, basically, for that particular field. The other help right here is going to give you information about this whole window, and that's from this help area up here. So if I click on this, it takes me, well, there it is, inventory information. It takes me right to that online help area and puts me into the inventory item area. So those are the help buttons. Now, are you all awake yet? We can go right here to this table view, and there's a lot of different things you can do here. It brings up a list, but maybe I want something different than what it's automatically bringing me up. Maybe I want certain item categories in my list, or maybe I only want to see items that the primary vendor is a certain thing. I can go up to this filter, and if I click on that, I can say some different answers to these questions, and it will narrow down what I see in the list. But what's even better is maybe these aren't things that I'm looking for. I can come over here to this gray area, I right-click, I slide down to Customize, and left-click on Customize, and it lets me add more information here. So I don't think you can see it, but it says right here, click here to add a condition. So I'm going to click, and it automatically brings something up, but maybe that's not what I want. I can click right on that red word, and it gives me a whole list of things. See, I can look for so many different things here. So if I'm using profiles or attributes, I can look for anything that has that specific attribute on it. I could look for profiles, dimensions, anything. Let's see, item type. Let's say item type. So to get back to where this screen looks normal, I right-click in this white area, and I slide down to Simplify and left-click Simplify. Now it's asking for an item type, and I'm going to say I want to see all my inventory items, and maybe only in a certain category, maybe my apparel item. So I can say OK, and it shortened up my list. Now, if everything on here is what I want, I could print this. This is considered what's called a quick report. So I could print this information that I have right here. But maybe these columns aren't what I want. I might want something different in these columns. I can come over here to this blank gray box over on the left, and if I click there, it takes me into a column designer. So this is showing me everything that I could see on this, and this is what I am seeing right now. So let's go up here, and let's say I want to take something off over here, this attribute. Maybe I want to take it off of my screen. All I have to do is double-click on it, and it'll move it back over here. Maybe I want to see alternate unit. Let's do alternate unit 1. Let's see. If we had attributes, we might want to look at that. If we had profiles, we might want to look at that. So if I wanted to see if it's a food stamp item, I could choose that. I'm going to go ahead and say OK here, and it changed the columns. And I can come up here to between the columns. When I get a double arrow, I can click and drag to make any of these bigger. And in the same respect, I can make them smaller. None of them are food stamp items. So you could have this saying what you want to look at and filter down to only the items you want to see, and you could print a report right from this. Now, I'm going to actually go into one of these because I want you to see a gridded item. I'm sorry, can you make changes to those items directly in? Yes, I'm sorry, yes, you can. I should have told you that. So you could come into alternate unit 1 here, and you could add a unit here. You could come to any of these columns, subcategories, and add a subcategory here. So yeah, any columns that you have here, you can put something in or change something. Maybe I want to change this price. Maybe I want to make it 105.99. And it just changed it for me. So I'm going to go into one of these items. In order to get back to my other view, all I have to do is highlight the item. I have an arrow here, and this is the column I was on. And I can click on this table view, and it'll take me right back. Notice this is inventory, and it's gridded. So we're going to go to the grid so you can see how a grid works. This only has 2 dimensions. We have up to 3. So this is the color, and these are the sizes. And you can add to this color if you want to. If you get a new color, you could click on this little plus sign and add another color. And then just enter, and it's ready for another one. We can also go to barcode. And notice we have a barcode associated with each of these colors and sizes. We don't have a barcode on all of them, but there are on several of them. Now, I want to go down here to this inventory tab, and I'm going to say for my main location, I'm going to go to model stock. This is saying which sizes and colors I stock at this location. So maybe we stop selling the size small in the blue. I could uncheck this. Okay. It won't let me because I don't have any quantities for that anyway. But if there was one that I had checked for every grid, you actually have to do something. You have to put in your colors or your sizes. It doesn't create those headings, but you can copy from another item that has the headings that you want. If it's color and size and another item has color and size, you could copy it from that other item, which makes it a little handier. And then just change your colors. Okay. Blue and small. You don't have to put a small in there, right? You don't have to say all the different sizes, but if you're going to carry that size in one of the stores, then you want to have it out there and just mark it as to whether you stock it in that store or not. Does that make sense? If you go back to the grid, you wouldn't have to have all these colors if you don't stock that in, say, red small. Let me think about this 1 second. The system would still create every time. You don't have to have the system create that. You can it's hard to explain. When it's created, it creates a sequence number as well, associating each color and each size. You can have the system create, or you can not tell it to create inventory for that, and you do it manually what you want on it. So no, you don't have to have it create every combination of every grid, because logically not everything is going to be color and size. You might want to grid things with just colors. You might want to grid things with something totally different than what's called color and size. So I think it will do what you're looking for, but we can get into that in more detail. And Daniel, that's you asking that question. So I think what I need to do, I could probably just talk to you on the phone about what you're looking for it to do and what it can do. Sometimes specific things, I might not understand exactly what you're saying, so we would want to talk on the phone and get down to the nitty-gritty of what you need, because it probably, chances are it's going to do exactly what you need. Okay, so that's the grid, and there's the barcodes that are associated with the grid. And we can have profiles again. It's not a serialized item. I can come to other and put what I need to on it, and I can say what the substitute items might be. Okay, now that was a gridded item. I'm going to go ahead and save any changes we made. And notice what it did. I added a color. It's creating 12 of those, one for each of those sizes, colors, so forth. And that's because in my setup, I told it to automatically create those different cells, those different sizes and colors and so forth. I told it in the setup to do that. So it depends on whether you want it to do that or not. You tell it something different in the setup. Do we have any questions about the item information? One more thing I want to show you in this item area, which you probably will use heavily since you have different locations. I have a lot of people that like this for the location. Does a gridded item allow for different vendor codes for items in the grid? For items in the grid. I think it does. Let me make a note. Different. I believe it does. That would probably be down here under vendor items. Let's just choose the vendor. It's not asking me for a grid. I'll check on that. I'll double check on that part. And when I talk to you about the other question, I will also talk to you about that. So we'll talk one-on-one so that we can make sure that we understand what you're needing and that you'll be able to understand what the system can or cannot do. Okay, one more thing about the item. I'm going to go to this little Z in a circle. That's zoom. It's going to be very valuable to you. I love the zoom. See how it shows me my different locations, and it shows me how many items I have available, how many of this particular item I have available. Now this is a gridded item, and this isn't showing me how many of each size and color that I have available. So I can go over here to this view grid, And there it shows me various information. There's my quantities. So here it will show me where my quantities are. Now this is an item that has a lot of grids, so that looks pretty intense. We can look at vendor item information here. We can look at monthly history. This was my sales. I can choose something different. Returns, quantities. These are my quantities that were sold for different areas, different locations, different times. And you can limit who can see these other locations for the sales. And there would be a recent sales here if there were any sales made in, say, the last, 12 months probably. If it was a serialized item, this box says serial numbers, so you'd be able to see all the serial numbers that are available. This says transfers, so if this item was on a transfer anywhere, you could look at that transfer. If it's on a purchase order that hasn't been received yet, it'll show you that. And here's my substitute items. So if I had substitute items listed, I would see that right here. This is also, the zoom is available when you're in point of sale, when you're selling an item. You can zoom on that item within point of sale to see this information right then and there. So also, this information that's up here, you can tell it what you want to see there. If I come down to this options box, I can customize my options. So here's what I could see, and here's what I am seeing right now. So I could see what account code this item is going to. I could, let's look at alternate unit, unit price 1. I could show all this information, and there is a lot of information that can be seen there if you want it to be. And then I say OK, and it'll put that information up here, and it moves this information down a little bit. Now, if I want that information to come up on all my items, I do need to come down to options, and I need to save it. I'm not going to save it right now because this is our training company, so I don't want to affect anything else in the training company. We can also get to our item notes right from here if we want to look at the notes on that item. This item has no notes because my forward and backward arrows are grayed out. I could add an item note right now if I wanted to. I'm going to get out of the zoom, and we're back to the item. Okay, do you have any questions about the item that I didn't write a note for to check on? Okay, we're going to go to the next area then. I'm going to get out of items. That was there. You're not going to go to quick items. That can be done from other areas. It's just a brief part of the item screen, and it doesn't give you as much versatility as the actual item screen does. Inventory can show you the inventory. You can create inventory, saying that you sell it at that location. When you create inventory in the system, you're saying which locations stock this particular item and sell this particular item. If you don't create inventory, you won't be able to sell the item. The next thing we're going to talk about is adjustments. So we're going to go over here to inventory adjustments, and I'm going to click on that. And when you're doing an adjustment to your inventory, you go into enter first. You're going to see these three boxes in many different areas in this system. And that just means that we're creating a transaction. When you create a transaction, and you post it, that's what sets it in stone. That's what finalizes that transaction. And when you post a transaction, it also creates something called an event number. So you can use that event number to look things up if you want to, but you don't have to remember the event number because it will have them listed in different areas. So we're going to pretend like we're creating an inventory adjustment. I'm going to go into Enter, and it wants to know the item that I'm adjusting. So I can do a lookup here with this little magnifying glass, and notice it comes up to keyword. I can type in anything that I've set as a keyword. Right now, my system is set for description and I believe item number as being keywords. So I'm going to type in ADAM, and it's going to look for everything that has that anywhere in the description. It doesn't have to be the first word. It could be anywhere in this description. So I'm going to take this one item, and I'm going to say, okay, that's the one that I'm working with. It wants to know the location that I'm taking it in or out of in my inventory. So main is fine. It assumes today is the transaction date. That's fine. I'm going to hit Enter. And you can have it ask for an adjustment reason. Why am I adjusting the quantity on this item? So I can do a lookup and find something here. Maybe we found it in the back room. It wasn't included in our last physical count, so it's missing from our inventory. So in that case, you would be adding it to the inventory. If it's damaged, you're taking it out of inventory. So I'm going to use damaged, and it wants a document number. You can put whatever you want to in there. And it wants a quantity. Over here, it shows you your quantity on hand and your quantity available and your cost information. And here, since I'm taking it out of my inventory, I need to do a minus sign. As soon as I hit that minus sign, it turns it red, and I'm taking one out of my inventory. It wants to know if I'm changing the cost for the one I'm taking out. I'm going to let it go ahead and use the cost that's in the system. And by this reason or the account code that I have set for this item, it knows what to do with that inventory adjustment, what account number to affect. Here in the reference, I could type anything I want to, maybe my initials saying who did it. And I can post it right now, which will take it out of inventory quantities right now, or I can save it and post it later. I'm going to go ahead and post it right now. Yes, I'm sure I want to post. Now I can look at my inventory adjustment journal, or I can say no and let it go into my history, because when you post, all of those reports get put into your history. So if you don't print them right at that time, that's okay. You can go back and print them later. So it shows what I did. The quantity adjusted was -1. I took it out of my inventory. It was a downward adjustment for this cost. Go ahead and get out of here. Now I'm going to do one more item. And I'm going to do, let's do this one. And this one I'm going to say we found it. And it just brought up the last document number. I can make a change there. Now, I found it, so I want to add to my quantity. All I have to do is type in the quantity that I found. So it's just the number 1. I don't have to put a plus sign. Now this one, I'm going to just save it. And I can add another one by clicking here and do another item. Let's go this one. Enter. enter, enter. Maybe I don't have an adjustment reason code. I can leave it blank. It's not in blue. It's a good idea to put something in there, though. And I can say I found one, and I want it on the same document, so I save it here. Now, I'm all finished doing my adjustments. I could run an edit list. An edit list is anything that has not posted yet. So here I want to see my adjustments edit list to show me anything that has not posted yet. Now, I could go here and say a date or a specific item if I wanted to. I'm just going to show everything. And the only things that are out there are 2 of them that I hadn't posted yet. It gives me the information about them. And you may want to print this, or you don't have to. I'm going to close that. I looked it over. It's everything I want to set in stone. It's everything I want to do. So I click Post, and it wants to know if I want to post all the inventory adjustments for this batch. You can create batches for maybe your different locations so that you're not posting everybody else's stuff at the same time. So I want to say yes, and I want to say yes. I want to look at the journal. It's just going to give me exactly what was on the edit list. And get out of there, and I'm done. Can you edit from the list, or do you have to go back to the enter and find an adjustment there? You have to edit through enter. This edit list is just showing you what is in this enter and what will be posted when you click on post. So if you want to make any changes to those adjustments, you have to go back into enter. A lot of people, when they do those adjustments, they just go ahead and post while they're in the item itself doing the adjustment. I'm going to go back one screen. Is there any type of warning about unposted? There's no real warning. If there's something in the edit list, that means it hasn't posted yet. If there's a problem, then it will give you an error message if there was a problem. What happens if multiple people are doing adjustments on the same location? What I recommend then is that you post your individual, or you have separate batches. Now, the problem with doing separate batches is that you can't see what each other has done. So what you want to do when you're in the enter, for posting, is it site specific? When you post, what it's specific for is your batch. Because when I said I wanted to post, I was already in batch, I think it was called default. So it wanted to know, do I want to post all of the default batch? And when I posted, it posted everything. If you don't want to run into each other or post each other's things, and you don't have batches set up, what you would want to do is when you choose an item right here and you make your adjustment, you want to post it right at that time. And you can just keep going. I can post, yeah, no, I don't want to see the journal, and it's ready for another item. So I can just keep moving right along if I need to. Or you can post in batches. Now, when you get ready to set up your system, what's going to happen is when you go into the enter, if you have more than one batch, it's going to ask you which batch you want to enter for. And then when you post, it's going to ask you what batch you're posting. If you have batches set up specific to users, only that user is going to be able to run an edit list or change anything under enter or post that particular batch. So you might want to create batches for groups, maybe by location or by store or by department. And then that way, when you post, you're only posting that department. Or you post individually one at a time. Okay. Is there a way to make adjustments on multiple SKUs from the same vendor at the same time? Well, you would just keep going on and on and on for the next. You would just keep clicking that green arrow for every item. The green plus sign. So every time you created one, then you either post it or save it, and then you would click this plus sign, and it would be ready for another item. You would have to do the items that way. There are other ways to change your quantities in your system, and I'm going to show you some of those actually in a couple of other classes as well. We're going to go back one screen, and I highly recommend that once you have your system installed, I don't know if Counterpoint is on your system right now, or you might want to go to the practice company on the existing pet stuff, the old pet stuff system, and you could do some of these things in a practice company. That way you'll get the hang of how it works. Now, they don't have separate batches set up because I believe it was Jason that did all of that stuff. He didn't have different people doing all the different things because he just had a few locations, and he was in control of all of it. So he just had the one batch for himself to use. In your case, you'll probably have various batches because there'll be various people in charge of it for the different locations. So that's going to be a little different. But what I recommend is you go back to your system, or maybe if you have access to Jason's practice system, the old pet stuff practice system, then you want to do a little bit of practicing on there. It's really good to take this training and go back and try to use it in a way that you're going to understand, because just watching me on the internet really doesn't make it terribly clear. Once you start doing things in the system, that's when you really remember and understand some of these things I'm talking about. So that would be the best thing you can do. And I'm not familiar with where you are with your new system, so I'm not sure if you have it ready to go back and use yet, or soon will. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is physical count. And don't worry if you don't get this. There are certain steps, and if you go in those steps, everything works fine. But when it comes time to doing a physical count, everyone forgets the order of those steps, or how they start, or how they end. Because you don't do a physical count frequently. You might do it once or twice a year. But it is something that's very important to your system. So I'm still under inventory. I'm going to go over here to physical count. And the first thing you do when you do a physical count is you create what's called a worksheet. Basically what this is doing is it's telling Counterpoint what items you're going to be counting. So I'm going to go into Create, and I'm going to choose a certain category of item. And for now, I'm going to choose, golf is going to be way too big. I'm going to choose this one. I probably won't have enough on this one. But I'm just counting this one category. If I wanted to count everything at my location, I just leave everything blank here. And notice up here, I'm saying which location I'm counting. And I'm going to click on Create. and it says it created with no errors. Do I want to view the physical count worksheet? I could look at it right here. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And it just shows me what it is expecting me to count. Now, this worksheet, if you don't use a little handheld scanner called a data collector for your physical count, you could put these worksheets on clipboards and have people go out and enter their count right here. And there's a box for a check by. Maybe you have two people. One's counting and writing it down. The other one's counting again to make sure that that count is correct. I only have 2 items on this, and that's fine. I don't want a lot of items. So I'm going to get out of this worksheet, and I'm going to close this Create. I could come to the worksheet later. I maybe didn't say yes, I wanted to see that worksheet. So I could come here and look at some of those worksheets or print those worksheets. But here I can say what I want to see on that worksheet. We're going to talk about uncounted items later on. And we could say, you know, the location, the item information, just different things that we want to see on this report. We could also print some quantities. We could print the frozen quantity. That's the quantity that you had at the time you did the create. That's the quantity you had in the system. If you've already counted the items, you could get this with the actual counts on them. You could get the frozen quantity and actual count. You could get all of these on here if you wanted to. What it was when you did the create, what they actually counted, and what the difference was. So there's different things you can get on these worksheets. If you're sending them out with the employees to go count what's on the shelves, I would recommend not having a quantity on there at all, because you don't want them to get lazy at 4 o'clock in the morning when they're doing this count and just write down whatever's there. So I'm going to preview this, and again, you're going to see it just as it was. Now, I had a create already out there for my apparel. So you see how it comes up for apparel. So I can list each size and color that I've counted. And then I can go right arrow, and in here somewhere it will have the items that I just put on. Now, if I wanted to only see those items that I just did, I could come here and say that item category again. From that same one, and I can preview this, and it'll only put those items on that physical count worksheet. The next step would be when they come back with those sheets, or they come back with those little handheld barcodes or scanners, and you're plugging them in and you're going to import from those little data collectors. They come back with the worksheets, you're going to go in to enter. And what I recommend is going to this little box here, this little table view, and you click on it, and it gives you this list so you can go right through them and put your quantities. If it is a gridded item, it doesn't let you put the quantity here. See how it's grayed out? I would actually have to go back here to put my quantities in, because here, right here where this little check mark is, will take me to the different grids. And I can put my quantities for each size and each color. Now I'm going to go back to this table view again, and I'm going to go to an item that is not a gridded item. So right here, this item, I can say how many I counted. And I can keep going and so forth. Now, let's say that's all I've counted so far. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I've entered those. Now, if you were using the data collectors, you would import. When you plug in that data collector, you tell it to put this file from the data collector somewhere on your hard drive. So this is where you find where that file is. So you just click on this little ellipsis box, and you can find it on your computer wherever you've saved it. Then you can say what these counts are for, which location. And down here it wants to know the field that this information is in. Where is the item number? Is that field number 1? Is it field number 2? Usually it's field number 1. The quantity. Some data collectors will let you set them up so that you have to scan each and every item. So it's not going to have a quantity. It's just going to have an item number. And for every item number, it assumes that 1 was counted. For quantity, if you had it ask you for the quantity after you scan the barcode, then you would put what field the quantity is in. So maybe you scan the barcode, right here is the item, and the second field is the quantity because I scanned the barcode and then it asks me how many, I put in the number 10. If we have serial number to items, where the serial number is located in that. So basically, this file is going to be a CSV file, a comma-separated value file. So you have to say what is between those commas. And then you can ask it to delete the file after you've imported it so that the next time you put one of those data collectors on the system and pull in the file, it doesn't have to say, do you want to overwrite or anything. It'll create a whole new file. And then you click import, and it'll pull that information in. If you click verify, it will verify that the information is okay. It'll look and see, okay, we have fields for everything we're looking for here. If it doesn't verify, then the file format is not okay. It won't pull it in right. Okay, so that's importing. Then we have an edit list so that you can look to see what you've counted so far, what counts you've entered so far are correct. And it wants to know what quantities you want to see on this report, the frozen and the actual, frozen, actual, and variance. Let's go ahead and choose that. Do you want to include uncounted items? Maybe you're not finished, which I did not finish. I only put in 2 items that I put quantities on. So it wants to know, do I want to show the other items on this report or not? So I'm not going to show it. I'm going to preview this, and it only shows the items that I put quantities on. Here's what the system had when I did the freeze or the create. Here's what I counted, what I entered for a count, and this is my variance, and it gives me my value variance too. So this, if I post, it's going to change my quantity counter, my quantity that I have on hand to what I counted. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to click on Post. That's my next step. Wants to know the location. If I want a specific posting date or do I want the freeze date, I'm going to go ahead and use the freeze date. That's the date that I created that physical count worksheet. This is the really important part for uncounted items. Do I want to assume the quantity counted is 0, which would change any items that don't have a count quantity? It would change their quantity to 0. So that's very dangerous. Assume quantity on hand is correct. That means that if you didn't enter a quantity for that item, it's going to assume what's there is correct, and it'll take it out of my worksheet or off my edit list. If I want to skip anything that's not counted, then it'll only post the things that I counted, and it'll let me come back to that worksheet later and enter those counts. So I'm going to go ahead and say skip, and I'm going to post it. And it's only going to post the items that were skipped. Oh, I've got errors all over the place. And the reason I have errors is because some of these things are really, really old. I'm going to say no here. Let's see if I change this to today's date and see if it'll post then. It may or may not. No, it still has errors. But it didn't ask me if I wanted to look at the sheet. So that's okay. I can find what those errors are by looking at an edit list. I can look at a better edit list and see what those errors are. However, I know what they are. Some of these creates were done probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they're still sitting out there because they've never been posted. Those are the steps to doing a physical count. Now, if I'm not going to finish that physical count, if I only want to take into account what has been counted so far, I would find the errors, yes. I would do a remove. Let's see. Finding those errors. Let's do this edit list. And let's include uncounted items. Let me preview this. And I'm going to come up here and look for the word error. So when I did this little binoculars, and I said find the word error, it will tell me what error I have. See here, one or more cells for this item for location name were not counted. So since I didn't count the whole thing, it's not going to post all of it. So it's letting me know that. No quantities counted for this item. That's fine. So it's really giving me all these items that were not counted. And I'm going to go to the next item. That's why there's so many. It's just telling me these are the items that were not counted, so it's not going to post those. But if I go, this is exactly what I was going to do. If I go to post, and I'm going to say today's date. Now, for uncounted items, do I want to assume the quantity counted is 0 or assume the quantity on hand is correct? I'm going to assume the quantity on hand is correct. Now, I'm keeping my fingers crossed because this system seems to make a liar out of me a lot. So I'm going to post, and it should post those. Okay, that's much better. 2 transactions had errors. And I'm going to look at the physical count journal so that I can see if those errors are listed here. I'm going to go up to this, and I'm going to put in the word error. 2 application errors, that's all it tells me. So those errors should be in my edit list. So now if I go to my edit list, and I'm going to show uncounted. I'm going to preview it. There's my 2 errors. Okay, these are serial numbered items, and I didn't put in enough serial numbers, so it doesn't know what to do with it. So serialized items are a little different ballgame. They want you to do something with those serialized items. It wants you to confirm those serial numbers and that you have the same quantity. So that's where my 2 errors came from. Okay. Do you have any questions, excuse me, about physical count? I know that was a quick way of going through it, and it always takes a lot longer. Transit data. I'm going to write that down because, excuse me, I'm just not certain. I don't set those up, and I don't know what the brand names are. I know there's one that's small and it really works well, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the brand name is. I want to say it's Metrologic, but don't quote me on that. Beverly's going to find out that information, and she'll let you know. With a lot of merchandise and a lot of stores, you're probably going to want to go with the data collectors. Mentioned one is available for. Yeah, probably. I think you can do with an iPhone or an iPad. I think you can do inventory with those as well. And with that, there is something called CP Mobile. It's a service. I'm not sure if inventory is one of the free services or if it's one that there's a monthly fee for. That would be right up Chris's alley. He should know which ones work and the pricing on that. But we'll check on those for you. If you decide to go with the CP Mobile, then yeah, it would be like an iPhone or an iPad, so we can find out which ones of those as well. Okay, now we're going to talk about transfers. So I'm going to get out of physical count, and you might want to transfer merchandise from one location to another. Maybe one store is selling an item like hotcakes. They're selling them like crazy, and another store can't give theirs away. So you might want to transfer what they have on hand from the one store that's not selling it to the one that is selling really well. So in order to do that, there's a couple of ways of doing transfers in this system. One is under transfers, you do a transfer out from the location it's coming from. So we do an enter, and we give it a transfer number. I'm just going to auto-assign it. You say what location it's coming from and what location it's going to. And the date you're shipping it, I'm just going to let it keep today's date. If you wanted to, you could click on the down arrow and choose a different date. I'm just going to leave it that way. I'm logged in as manager. That's who it assumes is shipping it. I can put a reference in here. I can also put a comment, and I'm going to, so that you can see what that looks like. And then if I go to this Lines tab, it asks me what item I'm sending over there, or items. So I'm going to do a lookup and find an item, this one, and I'm going to say I'm transferring 3 of them. And then I'm ready for another item. And let's see, let's do this one. Yes, you can scan barcodes at this point, right here. Any place it asks for an item number, you can scan a barcode. and then the quantity that I'm transferring. I'm going to transfer to. And after I type in my quantity, I'm just hitting my Enter key, and it moves it up into the body of this. So this is all that I'm transferring. I can save it and add to it later. Maybe it's time for lunch. I want to save it, and I'll come back to it after lunch. Or I'm in a hurry to get this merchandise over to the other store, so I could post it right now. I'm finished with it. I'm going to post it. Go ahead and post. Yes, I'm sure. And then my transfer out journal will look like this. This is just information about what's being transferred. And I'm going to get out of here. That's my journal. Now here's a form that can go with that transfer if you want it to. So it's saying how many were being transferred. So here they could write in how many they actually received if they wanted to. It's saying where it's coming from, where it's going to, and if I scroll to the bottom, it gives me totals at the bottom. That's just a form that you could print out at the time if you want. Now, you also have this edit list. That's just going to show you what's being transferred prior to posting. I'm going to go ahead and see if there are any other transfers out there by doing this. I'm just previewing. And there are a couple of transfers that have not been posted. But look at the date. It's from 2012. It's going to give me errors about that date. It doesn't want to post anything that's that old. And I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and close this and post it. And yes. And see how it says 2 transactions had errors and were not processed. I could say OK. And if I go back to that edit list and preview it, it tells me what is wrong. It's because it's outside the date range that I'm allowed. Typically, you're not going to have that problem because when you're doing transfers, that other store is going to be looking for it to come to them. So I've posted my transfer. Now the next step, I've sent it over to the other store. The other store needs to do the transfer in. So if I do a transfer in, then I can enter, and I can come here and say, I want to select a transfer. So this will list all those transfer out. Now look how old these dates are. So I don't want to even see those old ones. I can come to this column, the heading of that column, and right-click, and I can sort descending, and it'll give me the most current on top. So this is the one I'm looking for. I can click OK. And what it's going to do, it's going to bring up some default things, how you want it to go in as the default. So it's going to say those lines are what I received, all of them. And that's fine. It doesn't matter because you can tell it which ones you did not receive. It's going to assume the expected quantity is what I received. And that's fine, too, because you can change that. And if I didn't receive some, am I going to leave it on the transfer, or am I going to cancel that? I'm going to say OK to all of this because I can make changes however I want to. This is the date I received it, who received it. These can be changed. Here's my comment line 1 from my transfer out, so I can see that information. I can come over to this Lines tab, and here on this first item, it says it expects me to receive in 3 of them. It's assuming that I did receive 3. If I want to, I could change that to maybe 2, and it waits for the next one to come in. But everything was supposed to be on this shipment. Somewhere in between one store to the other, we lost one. So I could put a 0 in here. And you'll see then what didn't come in. Where did it get lost? It gives you a little bit of an audit trail to look for things. So I'm going to hit Enter there. And I'm on my second item. it thinks I should have gotten 2. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 2 that I received. I can save this now and post it in a batch, or I can post it right from here, and that will put the quantities into my quantities on hand at this location. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about where is that inventory once it's transferred out from the first store. It's nowhere. You transfer it out from the first store and you post it, it's out of the inventory for that store. Until you do the transfer in at the second store and post it, it's not anywhere in your inventory. So you have to do this posting in order for it to show up in the new location's inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and post it. Yes, I'm sure. I can do my transfer in journal and just look at it if I want to. I can print it if I want to. And we also have a transfer in form. And what's nice about this is you could look at that transfer out form that the other location sent, and then you have all of this information that you only received 2, and you have 1 or 0 that's coming in. So there's a discrepancy here. And you can put those 2 forms together to show, this is what I got. Where did the other one go? And there's a reconciled journal for that one that didn't come in. I'll show you that. So it wants to put it somewhere. So it's going to put it to an inventory loss. And I'm going to say no here. Now that's the longer way of doing transfers, but it really keeps track of things. Now I'm going to go back to inventory, and the other way of doing a transfer is called a quick transfer. This usually happens if you're throwing this in the back of your truck and you're driving it over to the other location. That would be under Enter. You tell it what the item number is that you're transferring. This is one item at a time. I'm going to say this item, and what location it's coming from and what location it's going to. You're doing both sides of the equation all at the same time. So we come in here, we can have the transfer number automatic. The quantity that's being transferred over there, let's just say 1. Oops, hit the wrong button. And we can put a reference here if we want to, and then we can post it right now if we want to. So I'm going to go ahead and post. Yes, I want to post. And it has a journal, so it's going to show me what it transferred. And this happens all at the same time. When you post this quick transfer, it takes it out of my inventory and adds it to their inventory right then. But there's nothing that says if it got lost along the way. So that's your quick transfer. Any questions? Oh, yes, I know. I'm a slave driver, and I make everybody just sit here. Yes, we will let's take 10 minutes, and we'll meet back here in about 10 minutes then. Thank you. I tend to forget. I was going to say something a little bit ago. Okay, is everybody back? Do I need to wait just a little bit longer? Okay. All righty, let's go then. All right, label printing is the next thing I'm going to talk about. There are two ways to print barcode labels here under inventory. We can go to tags, which is connected to an event. So if you do receiving of merchandise and you want to print labels for all those items that you received, but only the items that you received, you would do it under tags. And you're going to see this more in a future class. There's one called Reports and Labels. You see that in that class. But I can look up an event, and it's only going to give me the events that are allowed to print tags. And I could choose a receiver. And when I check this box that says Use Quantity from Database, it's going to only give me barcode labels for the items that are on that receiver and the quantities of those items that I received. So I'm going to preview this because I don't actually have a label printer. So I'm going to preview, and you should be able to see just a basic label that would print out. So this is what my label would look like. And it gives me each item or the quantity of items that I have on that receiver. The other way would be under labels. So if you're printing maybe shelf labels, you could choose a particular item. I'm going to go ahead and choose that one. And it wants to know what location because it's looking at the quantities that that location has. And it wants the label job that I'm printing. If we gave you different label job names, we would tell you what they are. And you tell it what printer you're printing it to. And I could say, if it's a specific unit and type, I could say which one I'm printing. And this Use Quantity from Database sees that I have 6 in my quantities. So it'll print 6 of these. If I uncheck this, it'll let me choose how many I want to print. So if I want to print 1, because maybe it's a shelf label, then I can print just that 1. And I can close that, and I can print 2 if I want to. Again, you're going to see more of this in the label printing class. Another thing under inventory that you might do is set some special sales or special pricing for various customers. So I'm going to go to the prices area. And typically we set up our pricing under promotion. Yes, actually you can create a label that says none and it doesn't print then. Or, let's go back to that real quick. Under labels, he's asking, can you set non-print labels when setting up a new item? We could go back to labels and maybe, actually this is a better one. Under tags, yeah, we can set that. What I like to do, and I have a lot of clients call and ask this, is they're printing labels, barcode labels, when they receive merchandise. So we're using this receiver. But down here under this filter, I can right-click and left-click on Customize, and I can click here to add a condition, and maybe I have that as a profile, that it's a can, or it might be an item category. or an item subcategory. Let's see if we have subcategory out here. Subcategory. Simplify that. So your subcategory might be cans. I'm just going to say this. I got to go back in there because this says is exactly, and we don't want labels for that. So you want this to say, and I just click right on where it says is exactly, and I say is not exactly. Or you could say a specific item number is not exactly. And I can right-click and simplify. And then when I go to print, it's going to exclude whatever I have down here for a label. So that might be even something that you would want to set as a permanent filter. And you could do that. You could save that as a filter that always comes up, and then if you didn't want to do it, you just clear it out. You just take that word out, and it'll give you everything. And again, you'll see that more when we do the reports and labels, and receiving, I usually go over that a little bit in receiving too. Okay, now we're back in prices, and we usually set up under promotions because promotions will let you do the things that are out here that other places will do. Like you have specials, you have promotions, you have contracts, you have planned promotions. All the things that can be done in those can be done in promotions. Some of the things under specials and contracts and planned promos that promotions can do, they can't do. So we just do it under promotions, and it makes it easier. You know right where to go to look for a special pricing. So I'm going to do a lookup and see, okay, there's one already out here for employee discount. We created this one called employee discount. It doesn't have a begin or end date. You could create a special, maybe a sale, 10% off all canned dog food. And you could have it have a beginning date and an end date. Maybe it's just for the weekend, or maybe it's just for Wednesday, something like that. And then I'm going to come over to this Rules tab and tell the system what to do for this employee discount. Here I have a rule description. This first one, I actually have two rules located under here. This first one says 15%. Over here, I tell the system what that means. They have to buy at least one. The method is going to be a discount percent. If I click in this box, I get a down arrow. So there's different things that you can do. You can do markups, you can do margins, you can do discount amounts, discount percent, a fixed price, or you can pick price 1, price 2, price 3. For me, this is going to be a discount percent off of price 1. I could have chosen off of average cost. So if you had a markup or something like that, you could say what it's marking up from. And then the amount of the percentage is 15%. Then I can come to items and tell it which items that's going to include. Well, I have it including item categories from the very first one to this one down here. You see that in my 2. So anything after that is a different rate. I could have specified certain item categories if I wanted to. If I come over here and right-click and left-click on Customize, it takes me here, and I can change it to what I want it to be. I'm going to leave it as is and simplify. See, I have primary vendor. I could just say certain vendors items. Then I can go to Customers and say what customer type gets this discount. So I've categorized my customers. And the ones that have a category of EMP for employee are the ones that get this discount. I could go to my sales tab and say what day of the week it is, or what only one store gets this particular sale, or it's just a certain date that sale is going to happen. What's nice about this, I have a lot of people that do like a senior discount, but only a certain day of the week, and that's usually their slow day. So I've limited what this is going to do. Now, if I go over to the second one, it says 10. So they have to buy at least one item. It's going to be a discount percent off of price 1, 10%. If I go to items, it's the rest of those categories. And the customers, again, are from employee to employee. And there's nothing under the sales tab. So I'm going to actually look at a couple of others to see if I have a certain thing set up. This one is what I'm looking for. I don't know why it says price for employees, but here it's saying if they buy one, they get it for price 1. If they buy 2, they get it for price 3, or price 1. If they buy 3, they get it. This isn't even set up right. It's a fixed price. They get it free. That's a per item price. That's going to be the third item is going to be free because it says use BOGO, 2 for pricing. That means they have to buy a certain amount, and then it's the other one that gets the special pricing. Require full group to qualify. What that means is they have to have at least 3. If they buy 4, only the third one is this price. Now I want to look for a certain, this is the one I was looking for really, because I set this one up. 2 for $25. It's a BOGO. It's a require full group to qualify. So what's going to happen is if they buy 2, they get each one for $12.50. If they buy 3, the third one is going to be full price. If they buy 4, each of them is going to be $12.50. Now let's look at what items are included in that. The category is only apparel. Now, we could have that narrowed down further, and that's probably true because we could have apparel that goes anywhere from $5 to $500. So we would probably, in the real world, have that narrowed down to maybe a subcategory or just certain items. Let's look at the customers. So this is true for any customers. And if I look at the sales tab, it's any day of the week. Now I'm going to go back to the main tab, though, and see if there's a specific date range, and there's not. So all my T-shirts are set up for if they buy 2 of them, they get them for $25. Okay. Now when you get ready to do these promotional pricing or special pricing for maybe wholesalers, things like that, you'll probably need a little bit of help getting them set up and working properly. What I do is I set it up, and then I go back to inventory, and I go to utilities, and I do something called a price test. So I can say which customer, and I believe I have one out here that's just called employee. And I can choose an item that they should get on sale. I'll just choose that one. And a quantity of 1 is fine. If they have to have a minimum quantity of 2, then I would put that in there. And I can say a date, because if I have a promotion that was set for a certain date, I would want to put a date that's going to be in effect up here. And then I come down here to the bottom and say Get Price. And in here, it will tell me what price information it's looking at to give me this particular price. And this is my rule description. And over here, it's going to tell me what my price 1 is. That's my standard selling price. So I see I'm getting that discount. Now, another thing we might want to look at, I'm going to choose a different customer. And I'm going to look for a t-shirt. I'm going to choose this one. And I'm going to say they're buying 1 small. Okay. Now this should give me the regular price on it. So I'm going to say Get Price. And it says it's going to price it out at price 1. But if I change this to 2, and I tell it, okay, it's too small, that's fine, and I do a Get Price, it's going to look at that 2 for $25 that I created. And it lets me know that each one is going to be $12.50. Now, if I put a third one in here and say OK, and I say Get Price, it shows me the first one's going to be $12.50, the second one's going to be $12.50, but the third one is going to be price 1. So this is a really good test to make sure that your promotion is set up correctly. It's also very important. Well, you can have it apply to just a specific location or all locations. It doesn't. It's all in that promotion. And I recommend testing, when you put a promotion in, test it on something that should get a discount and test it on something that should not get a discount. Because I have had calls that said everything's going out the door at 50% off, and all I wanted was this one item at 50% off. So right away we went to her prices and her promotions, and we looked at the latest one she entered. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull in promotion. And if I go to this Rules tab, over here under Sales, it wants to know which store. I could also say which location, but the store is what's selling it. So I could say just one store gets this promotion. Or I could say a number of stores. Let's customize this. And I'm going to come down here and change this to store. This to store. Well, I only have 2 stores. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to change this and to or. And I'm going to right-click and simplify. And see, I can say if it's store East or if it's store Main. So if I had 4 or 5 different stores in here, it would only give this pricing at these 2 stores. So I could group that way, or I could just have it for one particular store, or I could say from and to on my stores. There's many, many different ways of doing this. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I need to go back one screen. I'm still in inventory. I told you this was a big one. This is a long training. We're going to talk about sales kits first. And this is where those are located. And if you want to create a sales kit, it has to be an item in your system. So you have to have the main item, this, in your system as an item. Okay, this one is set up, it's called golf round. And what it does is it includes 18 holes of golf, the cart fee, and a shirt. But the shirt is going to ask if they want the shirt or not. And if they say no, then it's not going to add that to the kit, to what they're purchasing. So when you sell this golf round, it's going to put these items on the ticket. So all you have to do is choose the one kit item, and it'll do all of these things. This one is called a child's kit, and it sells them a cheeseburger, a piece of candy, and they get a discount. And this discount is actually an item in my system, and it's called a discount type of item. And it's set with an exact, amount to discount it. Let's see if we can find another one. Here's a two-person, 18 holes of golf, and the cart fee. So when I sell this particular two-person, it's going to include these two items. Now, if you notice, there's something down here that says allow substitution with. Well, we're not substituting anything on here, but you could set up that it could be substituted with any item in your system or only those defined substitute items that we talked about earlier today on the item screen itself. So this is just grouping your items that you might want. It could be an inventory item. You notice this cart fee, that's more of a service. So that's not an inventory item. They're not counting that. So it can include different types of items. And you just want to be able to choose one item and have it include multiple items under it. These could be gift baskets, yes. Will they be taken out of inventory once sold? Yes. There is also another way of doing gift baskets, and it's called bill of material. And let me tell you about bill of material. Under bills of material, you set up what can be in one of these. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, yeah. Finished kit. What that's going to do is it's going to include two vinyl skirting, two small vinyl skirting, and two Tussie cough syrups, because they're going to need it when they put up this vinyl installation stuff. This one, I know this one is one Russ created. And then he put a little comment in here to be sure to keep a minimum of 5 on the shelf. So these are the options that are going to come up. These are the items that are going to come up when we sell this FP finished kit. It's going to include, I'm on one of these, it's going to include 2 of this, and it says I'm allowed to change that quantity if I want to. Maybe somebody wants 3 or 1, so that you can change that if you want to. Same thing with this one, and the same thing with that one. I'm going to look for another one. Here's the gift basket. That gift basket is going to include a golf bag, some balls, and a keg of beer. They get a little creative sometimes. And these are all inventory items. These individual items are inventory items, and so is the gift basket. Let me show you what happens then. That gift basket is a finished product. We're going to take components that we have in stock and put together a finished product. So what we have to do is what's called a quick assembly. We're going to assemble some of those gift baskets. So if I go to enter, and it wants to know what I'm assembling, I'm going to do, I think it was GB gift basket. It was. And I'm creating them for this location. So what it's going to do is it's going to move out of the main inventory, main locations inventory, each of those component items. It's going to deduct from the quantity that I have for each component, but it's going to add to the quantity for this gift basket. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say I'm putting together 2 of these gift baskets. And these are the items in there. I can change the quantities if I want to right here and say how many additional quantities I'm doing. I'm not doing any additional quantities. I'm creating these baskets so I can put them on the shelf to be sold. I can save this and come back to it later, or I can post it right now. I can put a document number, a reference number, whatever I want. Look how it tells me quantity on hand for this is a negative. If I go to this, it says the quantity on hand is. You add an item to this. You don't add it here. You actually add it back on the the bills of material. You would add it here, then you assemble it. Let me go back and enter this gift basket. I'm doing it in the main location. I'm going to put together 2 of them, and it shows me my quantities for each individual one. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and post that. Now I can look at my journal, and it tells me how many it took out of my quantities and how many it added to the quantity. Bill of material, remove the individual items from inventory when created, but it can't remove them when sold. Exactly. Exactly. A bill of material moves your quantities around, because now if I look at my quantities for my gift basket, now I have 36, but I can look down here under inventory just for this location. Oh, I created one for a different location at one point in time. So I have 35 of them now. I did have 33. So now when I sell it, it's removing the quantity from the final product. So it's when you assemble things. We have a company that sells bed frames. So they have all these different pieces of bed frames, and they have to build those frames. They have to take all these different pieces and parts. So they could use the bill of materials and do a quick assembly, and when they assemble it, they have a finished product that the shipping department can say, okay, it's built, it's ready to ship out for these 2 customers that I have that need them. I can ship however many you make. So that was a really good way of using the bill of materials. Some people prefer to use the kits. Some people like the bill of materials, and some people use both, depending. So it would be entirely up to you how you decide that which is going to work for you. Now, one more thing I want to talk about those sale prices. So we're going to go back to prices for just a minute. And I'm going to go to promotions, because this is probably something that you will use. This is something that most of our pet stores have used in the past, because you might have canned dog food. You might have a sale that you're putting all of your canned dog food, that's 12-ounce cans, on sale. But another sale might be only a certain brand of 12-ounce canned dog food. So what you need to do is have something called a mix and match code associated with those items. So one of your mix and match codes might be, I did this test one, it might be 12-ounce can. So you could associate that with all of your 12-ounce canned dog food or cat food. And then you might have a category of cat food or dog food. So you would have those two different things about the items that you could make your promotion for. So let's go to a promotion. And I want to look for, let's see if this one has. There's no mix and match code here, but I'm going to add one. I need to unlock it, and I could come here and put my test mix and match code. And then over on this rule, I could come here and tell it under the items something about it's going to take this mix and match code, but also maybe an item category. Only mix and match code this, that also the item is in this category. So that would only give my sale pricing for items that have this mix and match code, but also have this category associated with them, or primary vendor, or something about that item that is specific. Then, if you weren't going to do all of the different brands, then you might want to have something specified with the brand, an item attribute or an item profile might have the brand of food. Maybe we'll talk about dog food. Might have the brand of dog food. So at that point, this mix and match code would be your 12-ounce cans. Your brand would be whatever brand that is. And you could also say your item category is dog food. So it lets you limit what you're giving as a sale price on these different things, depending on how you run your sales, how specific you need to be. Because in this system, you can be pretty specific. Another thing about the mix and match, get out of there. Another thing about the mix and match is under inventory utilities, there is this assign mix and match code. So you don't have to necessarily go through each and every item to assign a mix and match code to them. You could narrow it down. Everything with this item number from and to, everything with this item category. And we can also add things to this as well, fields. Right-click here, left-click on Customize. So we could add, let's see, an item attribute. Color was one of those. Or, no, that was a description. We could have an item category, an item type, profiles. There are so many different things that you could narrow this down and then assign a specific mix and match code. And one nice thing about it is you can preview the list before you assign it. And that way you can make sure it's not going to go onto some items that you don't want it to go on. And once you have your list to just the items you want, then you just say update items, and it will associate that mix match code with those items. All right, we're going back one screen. We've just got a little bit more that we need to cover, not much at all. I just talked a little bit about reports because you're going to get a lot more about the inventory reports in the reports class, but there are some nice reports here that you can do an inventory analysis just to see where your inventory is. You can get your top 10 by inventory value. Maybe you want quantity on hand or quantity sold. Let's choose quantity sold. You could do all, your top 10, 50, bottom 10, 50, whatever you want. I'm going to say I want to see my top 50 sellers between January 1st and today. I'm choosing year to date. So I can preview this. Oh, yeah. I'm forgetting that that's in blue. I want a location in there. I usually have this filled in. And then I'm going to preview it. So this gives me an idea of what I have on hand, how many were sold, how many are committed. They might be committed on a purchase order, waiting to come in. They might be committed to a customer order, and so forth. Quantity on a purchase order. Retail value, profit, inventory value, weeks on hand. So this gives you some information about these top 50 items, even though I've only sold the top 13 items. So, oh, it's in categories. I've ranked it by category. I could get item number if I wanted to, but I've got it by category up here. I could do it by item and preview that. That gives me my top 50. That's just one of the inventory reports. We always recommend that you come in and just do some of these reports and have them come up on the screen, preview them on the screen, so you can get an idea of which ones you might use. You have an aging. You have a valuation, what your inventory is valued at right now, but there's also a historical valuation. Maybe you want to see what the value of your inventory was as of the last day of last month. You could do that right here with this historical valuation. You could get a merchandise analysis report. That's one that we go over in detail in the reports class. That's a nice report. I could just get a list of my items by going to items. I could get a summary or a detailed report. I'm going to just do summary in order by item number. But maybe I just want a specific, yes, you can do this by all locations if you want to. Primary vendor, maybe I want to look at just this, oh, I know which one I want to do. I want to do it by primary vendor Adam. And this one is not asking for a specific location, but it's just an item overview. It's not giving me quantities. So I'm going to preview that, and that just gives me all my items. And I can go to the very last page to see how many pages there are and how many items I have. Now, let's talk about the, I'm going to go back to inventory analysis. And you were asking about locations, and I put in a specific location, but I could say all locations if I wanted to. And that would give me a company-wide report. So maybe I want my top 100 sellers, and I want to change this to quantity sold. And for the year so far, and I can preview that. And I can go to my bottom and see, you know, quantity on hand, quantity sold for everything. And I can go through this and see the individual items if I want to. What I like about previewing this on the screen is you're not wasting any paper, and you can always go to this last page and see how many pages it is, because I've had a lot of people pull it up and say, oh my goodness, this is 100 pages. I don't want that much on a report. excuse me, I don't need that much. This must not be the report I want. One nice thing is if you find a report that you like, that you want to run on a regular basis, you can come down to this option and you can save the parameters. And then you just give it a name. I'm going to call it Debbie. And I'm going to save it. Now, if I went out of here and went back in, I could go down to my options again and load parameters, and I can pull that Debbie report, load it up, and it'll answer the questions the same way I had them originally. Any other questions? I'm not going to get into too much of these reports right now because we will cover more of these reports in the reports class. But if you have any questions, be sure to ask. And when we get to the reports class, if there's a specific report you're looking for, don't hesitate to ask for that. We get a lot of phone calls about reports because reports are usually something you worry about later. At first, you just want to get the system up and running and be able to sell merchandise. Later on, you want to see how much of that merchandise I sold, how much I made on it. So that's usually when you have a lot more information about what you want to see on a report. And we can direct you then to the correct report. Okay, I'm sorry I talked your ears off. That's the end of the inventory class. Like I said, it's wonderful if you can go back and play around on the system and test some things. But if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. I'll hold on. I'll keep the class open for a couple more minutes in case you type in any more questions. Thank you, Daniel. Tomorrow, I have tomorrow's class again. Russ is being very hard on me this week. He's only taking one of the classes, so you get me again tomorrow. I'm sorry. Try not to bore you to death and put you to sleep. Okay, that's it. Thank you.